Venus is on, she's on the way. She's on the scene. She's downstairs.
All right, the time is currently 9 a.m. We will call this meeting to order for the City of Statesboro Council. The date is October the 6th, 2020. We will have our invocation and pledge of allegiance. If we'll have Paulette Shavers to do that for us, that would be outstanding.
God, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for allowing us to be here. And I continue to ask that you would grant us with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of how to properly govern the city of Statesboro. And God, I ask that unity would abound here in the city of Statesboro as we govern wisely. Bless everyone in this room. Bless them when they leave this room. In your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we move down to agenda item 3, which is recognition and public presentations. We have a proclamation for Georgia Cities Week. And the proclamation reads as follows. A proclamation by the Mayor and City Council of Statesboro, Georgia. Georgia Cities Week is October the 4th through October the 10th, 2020. Whereas city government is the closest, most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents. And whereas city government is administered for and by citizens and is dependent upon public comment to and understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas city government officials and employees share a responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas Georgia Cities Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives. And whereas this week offers an important opportunity to spread the word to all citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence this branch of government which is closest to the people. And whereas the Georgia Municipal Association and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information. And whereas Georgia Cities Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the city of Statesboro declares October 4th through the 10th, 2020 as Georgia Cities Week. Be it further resolved that the city of Statesboro encourages all citizens, city government officials, and employees to do everything possible to ensure that this week is recognized and celebrated accordingly. Passed and adopted by the city of Statesboro this 6th day of October, 2020. Okay. Any public comments?
No, Mayor.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 5, consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda, approval of the minutes for the work session for our September the 15th meeting, as well as our September the 15th council session. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 6, which is a public hearing, first reading of ordinance 2020-07, of ordinance creating a chapter of non-discrimination and equity. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, but I'd like to make a motion that we divide this up into 3 different topics. First being the non-discrimination ordinance, second being the vendor portion, and then the equity package. I think those are 3 distinct areas, and to talk about them all together would be very confusing, so that's my motion.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those opposed? All right,
Thank you, Mayor.
okay, no problem at all. We're seeing that we are now open. Kane, if you will.
Mayor and Council,
This is the first reading of Chapter 80, which is an entirely new chapter in the Statesboro Code of Ordinances. It is non-discrimination and equity, and as stated, it does have three components. And as per motion of council, I will go over the non-discrimination ordinance until the council discussion is complete and public hearing is complete on that. So the the anti-discrimination ordinance, it makes it illegal for the unlawful practices are set out in section 82, and it shall be unlawful discriminatory practice for businesses because of race, religion, color, sex, disability, national origin, ancestry, sexual orientation, gender identity, age or military status of a person to refuse or hire such person, or to bar, discharge such employment, or to otherwise discriminate against such person. That's as far as hiring goes, and also shall be unlawful for a business to discriminate against those people, those protected people, as in the terms of conditions or privileges of sale of or rental of real property, or provisions of services or facilities in connection therewith, or based on their use of rental housing, and also as far as the use of public accommodations. And then it has some protections for nothing shall be construed to mean that a business shall be forced to hire unqualified or incompetent personnel, or shall bar them from acquiring an employee to adhere to reasonable and equitable dress or grooming standards. Nothing shall prohibit religious organizations to employ an individual of a particular religion to perform work connected with performance of religious activities. Nothing shall prohibit a nonprofit private club not open to the public from limiting the rental or occupancy of such its lodgings to its members. And nothing shall require any entity subject to make changes requiring a building permit to any existing facility except as otherwise required by law. And it shall not be construed in any way to violate anyone's rights under the state or national constitution. In the event that a person aggrieved by a alleged act of discrimination can file a complaint with the city clerk for a $25 filing fee. It will be served on the person accused within 7 days. It shall then be referred to voluntary mediation. If mediation is either not agreed to by both parties or is unsuccessful, then the complaint shall then be referred to the municipal judge to be heard in municipal court. This is solely the action created under this is exclusive to the municipal court and the judge of municipal court, who will conduct the hearing with both parties, that shall make a determination as to whether the alleged discrimination took place. In the event that a violation has been found to occur, a civil penalty of up to $500 for the first violation may be imposed, and on second violation up to $1,000 and suspension revocation of the occupational tax certificate. And in addition, mediator fees, if any are incurred, shall be assessed to the non-prevailing party unless otherwise determined. The right of appeal, the cause of action is exclusive to the municipal court. However, applications for writ of certiorari may be made to the Superior Court of Bullitt County within 30 days after resolution of action by the municipal court judge. Retaliatory conduct is prohibited. This ordinance shall be promulgated the city must provide a copy of this ordinance to all businesses must provide a copy of this ordinance to their employees within 60 days of obtaining their OTC from the city of Statesboro. And it also has a hate crimes reporting provision in 8010 that the city of Statesboro shall develop guidelines for identification, investigation, documentation, and reporting of hate crimes committed within the city limits, and assist those aggrieved with how to forward these to local, state, regarding local, state, and federal law. And that is what, in a nutshell, the anti-discrimination ordinance, which is set out today as Article 1 of Chapter 8.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there anyone here?
May I ask him a couple of clarification questions so everybody can hear it first?
Some clarification questions?
Uh-huh.
Okay, go ahead.
Kane, on section H, What is this building permit to existing facility? I'm not clear what that means.
What's that's saying is that, that is an exception saying that a business entity not subject to the American with Disabilities Act does not have to put in, does not have to put in accommodations based on our law.
I got you. You got a historical house that has stairs.
Right.
Based on this, they don't have to change.
Right, the only accommodations for, people with disabilities would be under the ADA, under federal law, nothing, no further, enhancement of that is within this ordinance.
In section 10, is the city already doing that? Is the Statesboro Police Department already doing that, the hate crime?
I'm not sure exactly of how extensively they do so. I could, if the chief is here, we could,
Deputy Chief.
he probably answer more specifically.
Yes, sir.
Did you get a question
I
right?
did not, sir.
Oh, the question was, is the Statesboro Police Department already reporting hate crimes to federal databases, state databases, et cetera?
As currently required, there is a new state law that was enacted, I believe, this year that has changed some of that.
Okay. And then the only other question I have is, well, I got two more. 80.9, we say we have to give everyone a copy of this ordinance.
The employers that hold an occupational tax certificate are required under 89 to give copies of this ordinance to their employees within 60 days. As notice,
And if they don't?
that would be a violation of this, the section.
Okay. And my last question for you is regarding the non-discrimination portion, so the portion that we're discussing right now. Is there anything in this language, in these few pages, that supersedes, overwrites, overruns state law or federal law?
It does not. It is consistent.
This
It
is-
is consistent with state law, and this template has been in action, substantially the same ordinance has been in place in Doraville for 20 years and has not faced any sort of constitutional challenge either at state or federal level.
Chamblee as well, right?
Chamblee as well.
And even Atlanta, but they have the commission, but they've had the rest of the ordinance has pretty much been in place in Atlanta for 30 years.
The only deviation you see in other local ordinances is as to the actual, hearing procedure and selection of the hearing officer. And, for example, in Atlanta, they have a human relations committee involved. But as far as the substantive part of the law, this is consistent with the others that are enacted within the state.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Mayor.
No problem at all. And Kenny, I want to be clear with this. Am I misguided or am I on target when I say that this ordinance brings the city of Statesboro in line with current state and federal regulations already?
That's correct.
Okay, so I want to be abundantly clear because I know that there's been misinformation that's gone out about this ordinance. And this ordinance brings the city of Statesboro in line with current state and federal regulation. So for those of you that's concerned about faith issues, I totally understand where you're coming from in regards to want to be able to protect your faith. But we are, as a city, in the separation of church and state, are coming in line with current state and federal guidelines already. So a business currently, right now, does not have the right to discriminate who they provide services for or sell to if it is a public business. And so what the city of Statesboro is currently saying is that we are going to adhere to state and federal guidelines as of right now. And so these state laws and federal laws that's been argued at every level, all the way up to the Supreme Court, Statesboro is saying we are going to adhere to the findings of those bodies. So that's what this is. So with that being said, Is there anyone here to speak for the request? Roland Barnes, are you here to speak for or against?
He's not here.
Okay, so let's mark Roland Barnes.
Is he not here, or is he
All right,
downstairs?
Jeff Clare, are you here to speak for or against?
I am in favor of the ordinance, sir.
Okay, please, come forward. And the reason why I'm asking what position is because there is a order that we have to go through for this. Mr. Clare.
So as people say, Mr. Jeff, you're not from around here, so, but I'm not.
Okay.
I came here from New York City, and I decided to make Statesboro my home. We own the most beautiful building in the downtown area, Southern Chiropractic and Wellness Center. And I am the National Director of Employment for the United States Veterans Chamber of Commerce. We want to make Statesboro our state chapter home. This ordinance is essential for me personally in making more investments in the city of Statesboro. I want to know that all the vendors that we work with are inclusion and diversity based. This is an issue that we can't look away from. It concerns me greatly that our veterans, people with disabilities, seniors, people of color are treated equally, fairly, and have a right to do whatever they choose to do in the city. So I ask, please pass this ordinance.
Thank you, sir. All right, and as a point of clarification, I do want each speaker to know that you do have a 3-minute time limit.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, to accommodate folks waiting outside, I think we decided that we're gonna have to ask folks, once you speak, to step out and let somebody waiting outside come in so we can hear from everyone, is that correct?
That's-
Mr. Bennett,
Thank you, Jeff.
he had his hand up. Mr. Bennett, did you want to add something? Oh, I'm sorry. You put your
I'm
finger.
taking leave.
Oh, you're pointing,
Yeah.
sorry, my bad.
So we do have the timer going each time?
Yes.
All right, and so the next name on the list is Reed Durr. Reed, are you here to speak for or against?
Again, please.
Okay, so we're not at that point yet, so you'll be first for the against.
You can take
Okay,
that seat.
James Byrd, are you here to speak for or against? Okay, all right,
Mr. Durr.
all right. Ash Strickland, are you here to speak for or against?
For.
Okay, please come forward.
And Mayor, would you remind all the speakers to give us their name and their address so we know where they're.
Oh, my address. Okay. Hi, my name is Ash Strickland, and I live at 202 Glenwood. So 3 minutes?
3 minutes, yeah.
Okay. So I came up here in front of y'all today because I am born and raised South Georgia. I'm proud to be from Statesboro, or that's what I claim as my home now. And I've gotten the pleasure of meeting almost every single one of you on the city council, and the mayor, of course. We're very familiar. And I love Statesboro. It has become my home. I've been here for the past 5 years, and I want to continue to make a life here, but I don't feel like that's possible anymore. And that is because I had a pretty bad incident last week at East Georgia. Now, it's not East Georgia's fault. They tried as much to provide health care for me, but I am hard of hearing, and I'm also someone that has vision loss. I took my glasses off before I walked over here, so I can't see any of your faces, intentionally, because I don't want to get nervous and stumble over my words. But I don't know how long I've had vision loss, but I've probably had it all my life, and I'm 22, so I shouldn't be tested for glaucoma every time that I go to the eye doctor. I clearly have a disability, and as a disabled person, I interact with people differently. I can't see your name if I don't know you, so if I'm trying to talk to my friend over here, I have no idea what your name is, and I'm sorry about that. So I have to take a little bit of time and say, sorry, I didn't catch your name. What was your name again? And that's how I communicate with people. So last Wednesday, I had a panic attack because I was in an MRI machine, and it was the first time I've ever gotten an MRI. I was visiting a neurologist because I had COVID in July. And I know a lot of articles have said that you get neurological damage to your brain after having COVID. Me and my entire household had it. So I've kind of been going through a health crisis as of late, and that's awful for a 22-year-old. And I really wanted to come today and talk about that a little bit. So I was at East Georgia, and I was given an IV. I was sedated and taken to the hospital there. The staff was very nice, very accommodating, but I do not feel like I was treated correctly. As you can see, I have a bruise on my arm. I have scratches all over my body, bruises all over my body from the way that I was treated at this facility. And I don't think that a simple IV should have this much of a bruise on my arm. Yeah, I don't feel as if I was treated correctly, and I think that that is because of who I am as a person that has vision loss and a person that is hard of hearing.
Thank you. Brian Feltman, are you here to speak for or against?
For.
For.
My name is Brian Feltman. I live at 108 Woodlawn Drive, and I would like to speak overwhelmingly in support of this ordinance. I think that, as the mayor stated, this simply would bring Statesboro into line with state and federal law. And at this point, to do otherwise, to go against that, would send the kind of signal that Statesboro does not want to send to the outside community. We want to be an inclusive community. We want to be a place where businesses feel comfortable coming, where people feel comfortable coming to make their homes here, to raise their children here, and to go against the standard that has already been established by state and federal law would send the kind of message that could be absolutely catastrophic to the future of Statesboro. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Malloy, are you here to speak for or against?
I'm here to speak for.
Will you come forward?
I've got my pocket constitution in case anybody needs one. But I would just like to read out the 14th Amendment real quick here. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges. This ordinance only serves to protect those in our community who are most vulnerable. Anybody who opposes that is showing their bigotry and showing that they do not care about this community. And we can't stand for that. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are all familiar with that term. I'm not only speaking to my city council, I'm speaking to citizens of this community. We don't tolerate bigotry here. Like everybody has said, this is in line with federal, with state ordinances. This is in line. There should be no question on what this is about, because the people who are here to oppose this are really here because they are trying to enforce bigotry. They are trying to make sure that remains in our community. They're trying to make sure that our friends, our family, our fellow community members, people like myself, people like Ash, people like so many people in this community do not have equal access like so many able-bodied and privileged people do in this community. I urge you all to pass this ordinance. This is within Statesboro's power. This is within our community's power. We need to claim that.
Next we have Jane Page. Are you here to speak for or against?
For. Now, I'm trying to speak fast so I can share everything I want to share. So I'm Jane Page, 4863 Country Club Road. I'm pastor of Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Statesboro, where we proudly fly a rainbow flag, and I'm a native of this beautiful city. As a Unitarian Universalist, I am called to uphold and lift up our principles, which include the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. So, of course, I applaud this council for the important and just consideration of this anti-discrimination ordinance. But I come to you today with more than my clergy collar on. I also come as a retired faculty member from Georgia Southern with some memories that might help you in your consideration. Decades ago, we had a situation arise at Georgia Southern that still makes my heart ache. At the time, we had a women's basketball coach who, based on her religious convictions, decided that the women on her team had to abide by her standards regarding dating and relationships. And she dismissed members of the team that did not. Well, as a faculty, we were strongly opposed to that, but of course our university had no policy at that time against this action. We had anti-discrimination policies for such things as race, ethnicity, gender, and religion, but nothing regarding sexual orientation. So we quickly remedied that. My memory is that the faculty senate initially proposed a new policy and it was adopted by the university, making us the first in the state of Georgia to have such a policy and one of only a handful in the nation. Now, did the walls come tumbling down? No. In fact, having this policy proved to be immensely valuable in recruiting and retaining some outstanding faculty, staff, and students to our beautiful campus. And the same can be true for our beloved city of Statesboro. We too can be known for our inclusivity and appreciation of diversity, rather than as a closed-minded city where all are not welcome. Indeed, my heart ached when I heard of this individual in our city who was not allowed to keep his apartment simply because he was gay. If your religion was opposed to interracial marriage, and some are, you would not be permitted to discriminate in housing. This is not who we are in 2021. When I was growing up here in Statesboro in the 50s and 60s, we had a motto. It was, where nature smiles and progress has the right of way. Somewhere along the way, we dropped that motto, but I hope we haven't dropped that idea. We need to progress into the 21st century and make this an inclusive place for all loving folks. Do the right thing. Adopt this ordinance.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Marcus Toole. Marcus, are you here to speak for or against?
For. Last, Marcus Toole, I live at 8 Crescent Avenue, Statesboro, Georgia. Last 3 city council meetings, Trinity Presbyterian Church has arrived to oppose this ordinance. I know some things about that church and that denomination. I know it intimately well. One thing, I was an ordained minister in that denomination from the year 2000.
Let's stay to the topic.
Okay.
I don't want to.
All right.
Okay.
Position of that denomination right now, officially, is that LGBTQ people are to be excluded and marginalized regardless of sexual behavior. That sexual orientation in itself is sinful in itself, whether it's desired or not. And that if a person admits to being gay and says that they have to live with it, they are to be excluded and marginalized. It's not possible for them to be a Christian. I also know from eyewitness account, myself, my own eyes, that church has distributed literature that advocates the death penalty for LGBTQ people. There's a book that's often on that book table in that church.
Marcus, we don't want to go after no particular church or anything along those lines. Just stay focused.
Okay. People have used religious conviction as an excuse to marginalize us, to fire us, to kill us. We don't go after them. They always come after us. And they have done so for thousands of years. They have burned us at the stake. They have thrown us off of buildings. They have hung us. They have stoned us. They have burned our houses down, and they have excluded us from every area of society. We have everything to lose. They have nothing to lose. All we ask is that they tolerate our presence. And their bigotry has nothing to do with what we do sexually. It has to do with biological internal wiring. And they say so in their own official documents. So I urge you, please protect us. We need your protection. Because this bigotry is not about what we do. It is about who we are and what we are. And about things that we cannot change. If I could have, I would have changed it when I was 12. And as for sexual practice, I assure you, if you've been married for more than a month, You have done more sexually than I have in my entire life. Thank you.
All right, John Tucker, are you here to speak for or against?
I am for, sir.
Okay, will you come forward?
I shall. My name is John Tucker. I'm a member of the First United Methodist Church in Statesboro. I used to live down on Savannah Avenue and actually ran for city council back in the 90s. I want to thank you for letting me be part of this discussion. And I'm also here to speak in a positive manner for the LGBTQI community. But I have, mine was more of a religious statement. I think you said just try to hang away from a
No,
brand.
we just don't want to attack any church.
No particular
anything.
church.
No, we
For
don't-
instance,
yeah, we
if
don't
I'm
wanna do
wrong,
that.
you stop me, okay?
Okay.
I got, one of the, typically one of the most foremost references are from the Leviticus. And specifically Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22, where it says, clearly states that homosexual lifestyle is an abomination. And the debate typically ends there. Well, that's not true. Scholars today have proven that that's not true because the word came from a Greek word and the German word and was entered into our Bibles in 1946. The Germans actually created the term in 1862 and put it in their first Bible in 1986. And then when we got into our Bible situation, it's become very known that it was just misconstrued and misunderstood. And let me give you some examples of how we've come about that, because I am also concerned about, we have 23,000 students at Georgia Southern University. When I came through university and everything, we could talk about anything in a classroom as long as it was academically, as long as we respected each other's rights. There was absolutely no subject that we cannot cover in an academic classroom. Do you agree with that? And so your laws, your anti-discrimination law is perfect. It is coming in line. And it's also, today, for instance, remember, there was slavery. There was women had no rights. And you can see it's a topic where, okay, we can't have slavery anymore, so let's have discrimination. We can't have discrimination anymore because it took decades. All right, then women had a right to vote. Suddenly the women can vote. They're somebody. And suddenly we have all these laws that's coming about. Well, that's not really written in the Bible, is it? Let me give you a couple examples out of Leviticus, if you don't mind. As you can see, like many of you, I wear glasses. Leviticus 21:20 states that we may not approach the altar of God if we have a defect in our sight. Does our vision have to be 20/20? Or is there a little wiggle room here for me and you? I have another concern. I love football. But I know from Leviticus chapter 11, verses 6 through 8, that touching the skin of a dead pig makes me unclean. But may I still play football if I wear gloves? And it goes on and on and on. But I hope you will protect this, and I hope you will pass this, because it's very important. This is 2020, and we need to get ahead on this. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Paul Whitlock, are you here to speak for or against?
Mr. Mayor, I have general comments. I think you could construe them generally as adverse against.
Okay.
But they're general comments for the council.
Okay. And so when we get to that section, we'll call you. Okay. All right, so I am going to give this a shot. And so I don't know whether this is two people or one person. Taylor Lewis Guthrie Martin.
That's me.
Okay, there you go.
Hi.
Are you here to speak for or against?
For.
Okay.
Reverend Taylor Lewis Guthrie Hartman, 1117 College Boulevard. Mr. Mayor and Council, I first just want to thank you for receiving all of our comments with patience and with grace. You all have been through a lot in the past couple of months, and as a citizen, I thank you for continuing to care for our city, because you all have carried a lot. So in my call as pastor, when someone comes to me with a complaint, it is usually not about the thing that they're saying. There's always something underneath, right? And my job is to help excavate and wonder and be curious with them about really what is at hand. Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it loneliness? Is it this idea that power is some kind of scarce resource, that their privilege is being checked? And as you receive the comments of your fellow citizens this morning, I urge you to listen to the underpinnings of what really is at hand and stand fast in your call to seek for the flourishing of all citizens of Statesboro. And I commend you for bringing forth this ordinance and for seeking that all might have a pathway to live and to flourish and to be their full selves. And know that I, as a pastor, stand with you, and I am grateful for your efforts. Thank you.
We have Stacy Smallwood. Are you here to speak for or against?
For. Mayor, City Council, my name is Stacy Smallwood. I live at 305 Sterling Court, and I am here to speak in favor of the ordinance. I am reminded, as Ms. Malloy was earlier, of the Constitution. I think about the preamble, where it says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union." What that language suggests, even centuries since its inception, is that we have not always gotten things right, but we do constantly strive to make things better. And this ordinance is a step in the direction for Statesboro to be able to make things better by making our community safe and protecting the basic human rights of those who are the most vulnerable, by opening doors of opportunity for those for whom opportunities have not always been available or accessible, by collecting the data that will allow us to monitor our progress toward being that more perfect community for which we all strive. I want you to imagine what it feels like to live your life every day in fear of losing your job or your housing, not because of how well you do on your job, but simply because of who you are. This is not the community that we want to be. This is not the community that I would want to be a part of. No one deserves to live in that kind of community. I believe that Statesboro is better than that. This ordinance will signal to the state, the country, and the world that we are an open and inclusive city that is still trying to strive towards being that more perfect place. And with that, I urge you to support this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have Julie Pickens. Are you here to speak for or against?
For. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. I am technically a county resident, but I'm here to speak for some Statesboro residents who are individuals with disabilities who have not been able to speak today, or their access I'm not sure if they would have been able to speak today. When I presented this to some local city officials, I was told, well, let me tell you about our elevator. There's a lot more to it than that. The cart services are not available for this. I was tempted to come up here and do this all in sign language. It is nationally recognized language. No one would understand what I was saying. No one would understand that. ADA, which has been referenced multiple times, it is a floor, not a ceiling. And as someone that's worked in the disability field for more than 20 years, it is violated constantly. And it is violated without people even knowing necessarily that it is being violated. So the fact that federal law protects it or state law protects it, it slips very easily, and then individuals with disabilities have to out themselves either as an individual with a disability or an individual who needs some type of accommodation that they are rightly entitled to. But they have to do that ahead of time. They have to do it this way. They have to do it that way. They have to make it so that they are being marginalized, or they are thought of as less, or they are thought of as not being as important. Some of the individuals I have come to speak for today are individuals who represent both the disability community as well as the LGBTQ+ community, and feel doubly marginalized in this community. And so I would just really encourage you guys to pass this ordinance, really think of the effects that it has, and really think of the precedents that you can set, because people with disabilities, people in the LGBTQ+ community, people across the nation who are in some of those disproportionately affected communities really are not being served by Statesboro, not being served by Georgia, and not being served by the United States.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Annie Bellinger.
She's actually for general public comments at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
I apologize.
All right. So we have completed our list for those that would like to speak for. We are now in our list to ask anyone who wants to speak against the request. At the top of that list, we have Reed Durham.
Council, thank you for bearing with me this third time that I address you. I appreciate your patience and kindness, even though some of you may be skeptical about my arguments and position. I want to begin by reading some of the ordinance. This is 80-2C. It shall be an unlawful discriminatory practice for any business as defined herein, being owner, operator, lessee, and so on, of any place of public accommodation to refuse, deny, or make a distinction directly or indirectly in offering its goods, services, facilities, accommodations to any person as covered by this ordinance because of race, religion, color, sex, disability, national origin, ancestry, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, or military status. Would a bigot affirm that? I fully, completely, and in conscience affirm that 100%. I want you to understand that. I don't think a bigot would affirm that. But I encourage you to amend, to add the conscientious objection amendment immediately after that section C. And I won't read it because you only give me 3 minutes, and I gotta stay in 3 minutes, okay? But I did send that to you, and I'll be to discuss it. But the point is that none of the above paragraphs should prevent a religious believer or other person from refusing on the basis of a religious faith or personal conscience to cooperate, encourage, propagate, and advance. That's the key point. Advance a position to which he or she conscientiously opposes. No one should be forced to affirm or do what they in good conscience oppose. My point. No one should be forced to affirm or do what they in good conscience oppose. And my argument, this is not a traditional civil rights issue, but an issue of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of conscience. And I realize my arguments may be a little bit complex. I'll try to get here. I think that the council risks making a new category of second-class citizens for those who affirm a traditional and biblical view of sexuality and marriage. That is where I'm coming from. I think the council risks making a new category of second-class citizens by doing that. And there are a whole series of recent cases, and I won't go into them for time, where people have had to fight for their rights of conscience. Little Sisters of the Poor, current case, I won't go into what they did. Hobby Lobby also had to fight. I mentioned last time Mr. Jack Phillips in the Masterpiece Theater case. May I indulge you and try to finish?
Is that, with 3 minutes? 3 minutes.
Okay.
It's 3
I
minutes.
also brought Kelvin Cochran. I want to build off his. Kelvin Cochran was a decorated firefighter.
Mr. Durham, it's 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I asked your indulgence. You said 3 minutes.
No, that's what everybody gets 3 minutes.
Yes, okay. Now, my conclusion is this. Bear with me. This is 120 years
Mr.
ago.
Durham,
It's okay.
we gotta be fair to everybody.
Okay, I will
Everybody
send
gets
you
3
my
minutes.
full comments because I want to engage with you and discuss it with you. Sorry for taking much.
No problem, no problem. That's what we'll do. James Byrd.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and other representatives. Reverend James W. Byrd, I live at 13231 US Highway in East River, Georgia. and I thank you for this opportunity. But first, let me make this statement very clear. I am not against civil rights. There are many nuances to this ordinance, and listening to those in favor of it, I would have to say that if I were, being an African American, against that, that would be a tremendous sign of hypocrisy. But I would like to make these points in defense of the corporate Christian faith. Regardless of your denomination, I'm not here to defend that. I'm here to defend the faith, that for which I believe in, and I think many of you. It says that the classic verse promoting apologetics, defense of the Christian faith, is 1 Peter 3:15, which says that believers are to make a defense for the hope that you have. The only way to do this effectively is to study the reasons why we believe what we believe. And this will prepare us to demolish the arguments and the pretensions that itself against the knowledge of God. It's not about, I don't have a problem with whether you're LGBTQ or whatever your particular lifestyle. What the Bible tells us to do is to be compassionate towards individuals who engage in lifestyles antithetical to biblical principles. Indeed, we are compassionate. Nevertheless, compassion does not require agreement, approval, or submission to their lifestyle. We don't have to do that. God gave us the right to make a choice. They make their choice. That's not the problem. And I'll get back to the main point for the 3 minutes. As Christians, we're not governed by the absolutes of state-sanctioned political policies, ecclesiastical preeminence. State-sanctioned churches have historically become puppets of the government. And as Christians, we accept the fact that we live in a secular, ungodly nation, but we esteem the immutable word of God over our society, modulating mores. Let God be true and every human be a liar. Romans 3:4. The article subsection F80-2 anti-discrimination ordinance, although is intended to preserve the civil rights liberties, but instead raises concerns among members of the Christian community that directly infringe on their core biblical values. There's no problem with this. I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm not against civil rights. And the Civil Rights Act of 1964 makes that very clear what we are entitled to. But there is a problem when an organization, government, whatever it may be, try to enforce or coerce a community to adopt principles and values that are indeed antithetical to core biblical principles. The article challenges the profundity of the Christian principles and the values which we are not compromised or to syncretize. The syncretize, which means that the Christian organization who decides that they want to adopt a 3 minutes? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and next we have Paul Whitlock.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I am Paul Whitlock, 728 Hillwood Drive. I moved to Statesboro in 1975, and I know the Lord led me here. It's been a wonderful place to live. I'm a retired physician, and I might say that my colleagues and I, in 75 and through the years, have treated all people equally, regardless of race, etc., or financial needs. I have ownership in a medical office building here in town, and I have served 2 elected terms as on the Board of Education. So I'm very familiar with how it is to sit like you are. Appreciate it. You don't get any rewards. You get a lot of criticism. I've had it in the press. And so I know where you are. The reason I'm here is I read the Statesboro Herald article yesterday about the 4 proposals. And quite frankly, I was disappointed on the emphasis on diversity and non-discriminatory ordinances. The motto of our country is from many ones. And you know, we've had a lot of ills in our country, but from many ones. That's why we are here. One of the things that caught my eye is the bidding process. And bidding for city projects has to be decided based on the bidder's ability, competence, and past records to do projects and the lowest cost in the interest of the taxpayer. Certainly not on any false standards based on race or gender. This is actually discriminatory. I'm afraid this kind of rule will lead to blatant corruption and increase disharmony between groups. Not to mention, it may jeopardize the quality of the projects. I'm proud of Statesboro. I'm excited about its future. I'm excited for you because you're going to be able to see the things that transpire and you're part of it. If you want to see diversity, take a mirror. Take a mirror and look at yourselves. That's diversity. Believe in the citizens of Statesboro. They elected you. Believe in them to do the right thing. Coach Russell always said, do the right thing. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me talk. I think additional rules are negative and create disharmony.
I think, and I just want to be clear with that, because that's more misinformation. I would say, and the misinformation there is, the state has policy as it relates to making sure minority businesses get the opportunity. The federal government has that, and so the only thing the city of Statesboro is doing is coming in line with what already exists. So,
but they're there. They're there to protect the citizens. The federal government and the state government has clearly stated it. And, you know, it's fine to restate it, but these other things.
Yeah, we're coming, this ordinance is in direct alignment with what is already existing.
I'm concerned about, I mean, I don't know why you need to combine committees, work commissions and diversity. What's that gonna cost?
That's efficiency.
I wish I could hear that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can, I have an open door policy, but the one thing that I'm, you can have a seat because I'm just speaking in general. The one thing that I want to be abundantly clear on is that we are coming in line with what already exists. This ordinance does not, and I repeat, does not allow, it is not infringing upon anybody's religious situation, regardless of what your faith is. It is not doing that. The only thing, what if you, let's say that Statesboro only had one baker, and somebody, and the owner of that baker shop disagreed with interracial couples and said, hey, you know, based on my faith, I don't want to be able to serve you. That's what this ordinance is saying, is that no baker, if you are open to the public, you have to serve the public in its entirety. That's what this is saying. That's what we're bringing into line. This is not crossing any faith issues, anything along those lines. And to be honest with you, what somebody does in their bedroom is none of our business. And so with that being said, have a seat. With that being said, we'll keep moving forward, but we have to, Statesboro, we got to get in line with what state and federal law is saying.
The tone of this article, to someone from
We did
outside
not
the
write the
community,
article. We didn't
looks
write
like disharmony. and
Yeah,
that's
we
the thing
didn't
I'm
write
worried
the
about.
article. We did not write that.
Oh, I know you don't, but you look at the overall picture, that's what I'm
So,
concerned about.
so we'll go to section 2. And section 2 is, what is section 2, Kane?
Mayor, can we discuss the section so we can keep these things, the topics together?
Okay.
Because this is gonna.
So you wanna close it out?
This is gonna be very convoluted if we try to do all of these
Okay.
together. Don't you agree? This is a big one.
Okay, hey, I'm agreeing with you. Okay. All right, so we're at this point, we'll close the open hearing. Is there a motion to close on this section?
Has everyone spoke?
Yeah, everybody spoke.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr. Bennett?
yeah.
Well, man, those were the folks that have registered, there might be someone that.
Is there anyone that has not had the opportunity to speak that would like to speak? For or against?
It's okay, he heard you. I had no intention of speaking this morning until I heard some of the things that were said.
So it said this morning that.
Please state your name and give us your address.
My name is Suzanne Sherlin, and I live in your district, Mr. Boyum.
Okay.
It was said this morning that if you conscientiously object to something, you absolutely positively should not be forced to be around it. You should not be forced to reaffirm it. It does not mean you approve it. I conscientiously object to homophobia. I conscientiously object to bigotry. I conscientiously object to people steeped in privilege trying to dress themselves up as the oppressed because they cannot oppress others. And I conscientiously object to my city government trying to pass some type of law that would allow discrimination. This ordinance is the opposite of that. This is what you should do, okay? This is what we need to do as a city. And if you don't, like the sign says, you're picking the side of the oppressor. Either you're for all your citizens or you're against half of us. People's religious beliefs should not enter into politics. I also conscientiously object to people who assume that their religious beliefs are the only ones and the only ones that matter. Not everyone follows their God, not everyone reads their Bible. It doesn't apply to everyone. It should not be injected into the law. That's my personal opinion. I know y'all heard me. I've spoken to each of y'all individually, those of you who will speak to me. And I trust that you'll make the right decision. If not, re-elections come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak for or against? All right, seeing that there is none, we'll bring the public hearing on section 1 to a close. Council, is there a motion to do so?
Yeah, Mayor, can I make a couple of comments?
Yeah, remember, council discussion comes after we close it, so we want to stay in line.
Oh, you just want to close the hearing?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
just-
sorry.
just
My
so
phone moved.
moved.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second. My bad.
All those in favor? All right, now, council discussion.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Boyd.
Unless one of you guys wants to go first, I just have a couple of minor modifications that I'd like to.
You got the
see.
floor, Councilman.
Okay, cool, thanks. Let's see. Hang on one second, I made some notes here. Thank you for answering that question for me on section H, Kane, that totally makes sense. I had two things. And I wanna, before I make the comment, I do wanna say that when was it, in July maybe? That I recommended that we pass this, I think that's when the Supreme Court decision came down. And as Reverend Page stated, I'm familiar with that same rental situation where a young person was kicked out of their living situation for life choices, for no other reason besides life choices, and that's not the kind of city we should have. But I do want to make a couple of minor modifications, or at least ask for it. Kane, in section 80.3C, when the complainant is first referred to a mediator for moderation, it says that any fees charged by the mediator should be split equally between parties. Is there some way we can make that so the city would cover at least initial, maybe the first 4 hours or something along those lines? And the reason that I recommended this section of the ordinance is because, specifically because of the bakery situation in Colorado. Those folks had no other option than to sue in court. And so, and as Reverend, I think was it Reverend Gilbert? Reverend Guthrie? I'm sorry, who was dressed in all?
Reverend Taylor. She goes by Reverend Taylor.
Reverend Taylor, I'm sorry, she had like 6 names, so I couldn't remember which one it was. Reverend Taylor, she mentioned that conflict is often hidden from the surface. So, a lot of times we could be angry about all kinds of things, and those conflicts come out, when we deal with people, and then when you settle down and realize that you were angry about something else and you took it out on somebody inappropriately. That being said, I wanted to set up a situation and a process where those folks who felt like they've been wronged, instead of having to go to court, and instead of having to go publicly put this out there, and put their embarrassment and their shame and their anger and whatever else out in front of the public, to sit down with the person that they had a problem with and work it out. Because I feel that sometimes when you sit down with folks, even if you don't agree with them, you can work these things out. And especially if you can have a moderator there to kind of calm things down and to stick to the topic at hand. That's what this ordinance is for. I want to be clear, it doesn't supersede state law, it doesn't supersede federal law. It doesn't tell you what you can do with your religion or what you gotta do with your life. All we're saying is we're gonna treat people the same way, and if you have a problem, that you can come to the city, file a complaint, we'll sit you down with the person you have a conflict with, sit you down with a mediator, and see about working this out. So Statesboro doesn't become a headline in the news. You know, we don't need a Colorado bakery here in Statesboro. You know, if that person who got kicked out of their apartment wanted to make this public, that would not look good for Statesboro for the 20-something thousand students that we have coming here, not to mention East Georgia and OTC. So that's what this is for, is to provide a process for those folks to sit down with the mediator and work this thing out. And if they can't work it out, you always got the court system. The court system is always available to you. But court is inherently competitive. It's a conflict. You hire a lawyer, they hire a lawyer, the lawyers talk to each other. The people that actually have the problems never actually sit down. They have to argue it in court. Mediation is the opposite of that. It is bringing the complainant and the, whatever the term is, the person, the respondent together and sit them down. So the only other question I would have for Kane is then, when these complaints get filed, can they stay confidential until they're resolved? Is that something that we can do?
I don't believe so.
You don't? Okay.
I don't believe that would be allowable under open records.
Okay, well, that would have been the only other.
If it was a criminal action, then it could be, but this is not a criminal action. This only assesses civil penalties, and there's no possibility of jail time. And for that reason, there's not the protections up to disposition like there is in a criminal case.
All right, well, in that case then, the only other thing I would recommend that we amend, if it's possible, and Mr. Penny, I'm gonna throw this to you since it's more of a finance and a money issue. You know, is it possible for us to, you know, pay for a mediator for, say, the first, 3 or 4 hours? I'm not sure how long mediation normally takes, so I've never had to go to mediation, so I don't know.
Mayor, members of council, I just asked the city attorney what a normal mediator would cost, and so you're talking probably $100 an hour.
That's what I figured.
And so we would need to budget for that. Couple of things I would just ask you to think about. Obviously, you can do anything that 3 of y'all say you want to do. One of the, you do charge a fee for someone filing a complaint, because if they don't have to put some skin in the game, then they're more likely to file complaints without any real thought. And the same goes with mediation. If we put $400 per for mediation, then it's easier to go to that route. And I would say if you want to put some funds into that, I would probably limit it to 2 hours. And beyond 2 hours, then the other individuals would be responsible. And that way it's not completely open. You haven't thrown the vault open. And they still have a chance to have if they can't get resolved in 2 hours, they've got to make a decision. And so if you're willing to do that, but we need to budget for it on an annual basis to be able to accommodate that. But I wouldn't go more than 2 hours.
Any other council?
Yeah, I like what you said, Phil, and I do like the idea of mediation, because like you say, court is necessarily adversarial, and we want to support folks coming to agreement, coming and hearing each other, and coming to some resolution that's satisfactory to both. So I like the idea of mediation. I'm glad that's part of it. I hear what both of you are saying about we don't want finances to be a hindrance to somebody getting justice, and we don't want to throw open the gates to the city and say we'll pay for it, or to encourage frivolous complaints.
We don't want political complaints, we want legitimate complaints.
And that's in the eye of the beholder, but yeah. So what if we leave it like it is and add that we would match the first 2 hours of mediation for any complainants and respondents who request it? We could budget that we would match it so that they did have some investment, but the city would help it not be a financial hardship by matching up to the first 2 hours. How does that sound? Ladies, that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm pondering right now. I'm thinking about it. So mediation is gonna go past 2 hours? Like a 4-hour mediation is a long time.
Could be,
It
who knows?
could be, some of it could go as long as 8 hours, depending upon what the topic is. But again, it just depends on how locked in people are in their positions, whether there's gonna be any give and take.
You really don't know, but the reason I brought that up is I don't want anyone to not feel like they have a voice and they can't speak up because they can't afford it. You know? And so, I don't think we should be paying for tens or hundreds of hours for sure, and I think Mr. Penny's point is valid. But, you know, we do wanna make sure, we got a lot of students, we've got a lot of low-income folks, we got a lot of underprivileged folks in this town. And so, you know, to just suddenly have to fork over $200 in addition to the $200, you know, and that's if the mediator's only $100. So, I mean, to have to do that in order to kind of protect your own personal rights, your own individual rights, you know, that's something I think the city should and we should consider as a council. And I'll wait for other comments, but I'm happy to make a motion.
Any other comments by council?
I think that that's something that I need to think about. It's not a decision I wanna make right now. So if we can table that section of it and wait.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure,
About what?
and just the whole mediation part of it.
So what would you prefer? Just go straight to court?
I would prefer you get an option, because you can work some things out in mediation, but there are some things that you're not gonna be
When we
work
talk
out in
about
mediation.
No.
And I think that's part of the ordinance. If you choose to mediate, you can mediate, but if you don't want to mediate, you bypass the mediation.
That's in here, is it not, Kay? There's no requirement that, this is not forced mediation.
And I don't think that, and I don't
If you
think
wanna take
that's-
it to court, you can go straight to
And
court.
I don't think that's what you're talking about either, is
No.
forcing mediation. I think the way that the language would read would be that any fees charged by the mediator, and keep this in here that, you know, mediation is voluntary, but any fees charged by the mediator shall be split equally with the city covering the first 2 hours of the cost of the mediator, and then that other language just comes in there. Is that where we're going with this? We maintain it as voluntary, but should they move forward with mediation, that way we're giving an incentive to the claimant and respondent to take this to mediation and to hash out in 2 hours instead of bringing this in further burden on the municipal court. Am I hearing that right, or am I making?
Yeah, I want an option.
Right.
Oh, I
I
thought you
mean,
were
this
saying
does
it's
not
mediation.
preclude the fact that folks can go straight to court.
Okay.
You wanna go straight to court, I mean, I can't change that. You
I
know
thought
what I
that's
mean?
what
That's
you were
state
trying to
law, yeah,
change.
no, we can't force people to do this. But it's an option for those who may not have the ability to, I mean, lawyers are expensive. You got, just to sit down with one's gonna cost you $500 sometimes, maybe more.
They're going to municipal court, so the judge would be the one hearing it.
Sure, that's where it
so-
starts.
Yeah, if they don't like what the municipal court judge said, then they have the right to appeal it to state court.
Right.
So the free option is to go to municipal court, that is the free option. And so when we talk about mediation, mediation is an option that prevents them from going to court, but I do believe that if you have a complaint against someone, then you have to put some skin in the game. You have to put some funds up. And that's with any court system, like if, you know, if you wanna sue somebody, you got to obtain someone to represent you. And that's an across the board type situation. The city, I don't know, I think it's a kind of a slippery slope to begin to put that funding in for mediation. Unless, if we're gonna fund mediation, then it has to be binding. That's what I would think. Like, you don't get to go to mediation, then you don't like it, we fork the bill up to it, then you go to court, you don't like what you get out of court, then you gotta go to state. So that's what my thought process is. But I think, let's have the staff maybe work up some numbers as to what that potential cost could be. If we could reach out to someone that mediates, we can find out what that cost is. This is just the first reading, so let's do a little fact finding to see how much it costs. And then, and then when we get ready to, have our second one, we have more information.
And Mayor, if we could, let us do a little research and see if any other communities are.
Yeah, exactly, because we want to do we want to follow the best practices. So let's find out, let's find out from other communities, find out what mediation costs, bring that back to council and let council discuss it.
So then, Kane, when I make a motion, then what would you recommend I do with section C, just leave it the way it is? Because if we modify it later, then we'll just have to do one more reading.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's my question, is this a substantive change that's gonna mean we gotta push first reading forward again? If we
Yes.
start adding funding or matching funding? So we
Well,
Hey,
well, could we,
writing laws ain't easy, people. We can't just do this, don't just write them, go.
okay.
So-
So council, what is your pleasure?
I'm all for, I understand, you wanna pay fees up front, and I really do agree with that. If you want mediation, that we should, chip in and help out for those who can't afford mediation. I actually agree with you on that deal, but prolonging this is not something that I'm prepared to do. This needs to move forward, and the more we prolong it, something's just gonna keep coming up to prohibit us from moving forward with this equity package. We need to move forward. So I'm for moving forward. I like the way it is. I'm for moving forward right now.
Second.
There was a motion, Dana.
I'm just saying.
All right, any further discussion by council? Okay.
John, you're the only one we haven't heard from.
Nah,
Councilman Riggs, excuse me.
I'm still pondering it, just like Venus.
Yeah.
We'll have to think on that for a little bit.
Okay. All right. All right,
He's
so-
not one of the ladies,
I know.
All right, so with that being said, is there a motion to close, the hearing for section 1 of the equity package?
Let me clarify where we are. Help me understand where we are now, because we've got this consideration on the table.
I'm about to make a motion.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the Article 1 of Chapter 8. Is that the correct?
That's correct. Okay.
And with the, I will add, I won't change the language for you, Paulette, at this point, but I will add that I would like the city attorney and the city manager to look into how mediation can be done in the city. So if it's, if other municipalities and things like that, as the mayor said, typically you gotta put skin in the game, and usually you don't pick it, the city doesn't pay for it. I'm happy to go that direction, but for now, as I said, having the mediation option was the reason I floated this to begin with, and that's what this is. And so, move to approve with the research by city manager and city attorney.
All right. Is there a
Motion to
second?
approve was what that was.
Is there a second?
May I ask a question before we approve? So we're gonna do this section by section, and so
Yes.
then in order for it to move forward from first reading to second, we have to approve all three.
No,
We can break it into pieces?
we're making the adjustments as we go. So yeah, in order for us to get to approve the whole thing, it's gonna have to take all three, but with the three with the amended. And at the same time, council has the discretion to say, you know what, let's bring the whole thing forward. And then we'll see it at the second reading as well.
So this is
So we
not,
have-
this is not prohibiting us for going
No.
forward to the second reading? Okay,
No.
good.
No, this is moving it
No,
forward to
yeah,
the
we-
second
yeah,
reading,
we moved
or
it.
Article 1.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it done.
So do we have a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, on to section 2. Kane.
Mayor and Council, Section 2 is non-discrimination in purchasing and contracting. This sets out sets out that we have an annual goal for participation for MFB, that's Minority and Female Business Enterprises. And Councilman Boyd asked me today, how do we make the determination about MFB? And I just want to make clear, that's not something the city's going to have to do. There's a definition of the female business included in here, and the MBE certification must be obtained from the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, adhering to their standards as to qualification. So an annual percentage goal for overall MFB prime and subcontract participation, as you can see, procurement contracts is set out in 8052. I have that bolded in there as 20%. That, like I said, is just the goal. And this involves acquisition of any interest in real property, contracting, emergency purchases, categories or subcategories of goods, those purchases. And in 8054, it sets out several methods for promoting non-discrimination in city purchasing and contracting, that we do have a policy of non-discrimination. We would have a website that contractors and vendors can use to obtain information on bids or certification. That MB shall be encouraged to apply for DC, for Department of Economic Development certification. And that there will be a single unified list of designated city MFB vendors and subcontractors maintained, that contracting opportunities will be enhanced, and that city manager and director of the Department of Central Service and other city staffs shall review contracting and procurement practices in order to determine whether those practices and contract size unnecessarily inhibit the ability of businesses to participate in city contracting. That we would give a letter of contract award, and that is for credit purposes. And also we would promptly pay for them. Also, we would require contractors to sign a statement of non-discrimination as it comes to subcontractors. And that in some situations, there may be mandatory percentages placed on subcontractors on a city project if at the discretion of the Department of Central Services. And lastly is the Section 8057, which sets out the local MFB buying preference. What that does is create a 6% bid advantage for local MFBs. That would run in conjunction with the 3% bid advantage that is set out for local non-MFBs in Section 5335 of our code of ordinances.
Thank you, Kane.
Sir.
Is there anyone here to speak for?
Do we need to open that book here?
We didn't open it up, my bad.
Oh, it's good. So moved.
Is it a motion to open?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anybody here to speak for? Anybody here to speak against? All right. Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, we'll open this up for council discussion. All right, council?
I'm gonna let one of y'all go first.
I don't have any
You don't
discussion.
You got nothing?
Discussion.
I'm kind of good with it.
All right, well. Okay, so as I look at this, as I look at minority person, African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, minority business is female owned, 51%. So pretty much it means every other business except those owned by white guys or married couples that are white, where the wife owns 50% or less of the company. Everyone else is considered literally every other. So my point of pointing that out is, in 8055, the statement of policy, right at the very first, it says it is a policy of the city that discrimination against any business by reason of race, color, gender, or national origin is prohibited. Later on in that paragraph, monetary appropriation to the board without regard to race, color, gender, national origin, or the ownership of any business. The promise of non-discrimination, section B, no person shall be excluded from participation in, denied the benefit of otherwise discriminated based on race, color, national origin, or gender, in connection with any bid submitted to the city. And then in section 8057, we say, oh, except for this, so are we discriminating on the basis of race, color, gender, and national origin, or are we not discriminating on the basis of national, race, gender, and, I'm sorry, I got all those backwards, race, color, gender, and national origin?
I don't think we are, so I didn't have any comments.
Okay.
So, my understanding is that is addressed at 8057, the first line, that we are attempting to remedy historical disadvantages.
I understand, but it conflicts with 3, 4, 5 different sections in the rest of the ordinance. Because, here's my question, Ms. Barr, and you're right. It does say historical disadvantages, but, okay, let's say we have a white-owned business. They moved here 5 years ago. They've never lived in Statesboro, maybe they've never even lived in Georgia before. Now that person owns a road company or a cleaning company or whatever the case may be. Why is that person who's just moved here, who has no historical, issues here in Statesboro, why does that person have a 6% disadvantage against your cleaning company, Ms. Barr?
I think when you say historical in this context, Councilman Boyd, we're not just talking about Statesboro, we're talking about the United States. So let's kind of bring that into context. And let us be clear, we're trying to determine whether or not we're gonna say 15% of business versus 20% of business.
I don't have a problem with that.
Let me finish my comment. Okay, and so my comment is this, is that we're only identifying out of this whole big pie, we're only identifying a goal of 15 or 20%. What we're seeing is the rest of that pie is still going about that traditional route. And currently, the city of Statesboro currently does business with minority businesses at an 8% level. So that means that 92% of the business that the city of Statesboro does goes to an unprotected class, okay? And so that means that in that 8%, every African American, Asian, Hispanic, female, any other person that's in it, they only get 8% of the business that the city of Statesboro is doing. And so this is not putting any other group at a disadvantage. When we talk about that historical context, what we're saying is that we have to be more deliberate and trying to be able to support local small businesses. And what we're doing is directly in line with the State Chamber of Commerce came down and discussed with us a couple of weeks ago. So it's not to discriminate, it's to be able to provide some support. And we're only looking at a small piece of the puzzle.
This applies to all bidding contracts, does it not?
Yeah, it does. It is, and the goal is to get us to that 15 or 20%. Right now, the city of Statesboro, 92% of all of the business that the city of Statesboro does is with white males. Do we not see something wrong with that? You can't walk into a classroom and 92% of any demographic are the top performers. And what's interesting to me is that whenever we have this conversation, the conversation becomes as to whether or not the quality of the work is going to be good. Because when we talk about diversifying and being able to do business different, then all of a sudden quality comes in, cost comes in. But that was never if there was any group of individuals that overcharged and provided shoddy work, historically, it's been the group that we've always done business with. And so we do not have the opportunity to find out what other people can do when it comes to doing business. You look at some of these contracts, some of the contracts that we've had, these people have been doing business with us for years, and it doesn't give other groups of people the opportunity to show what they can do. That's what this is about. So no, it's not about trying to be able to discriminate. And what you find in America is that the people that's been discriminated against, they are the ones that's most sensitive about how they treat people, okay? And so that's what this is about. So this is not about being able to discriminate against anybody. It's about us making America what it is. I'm tired of us talking about how great, how fair, and how free we are. And we don't live up to it. Because somebody believes that their freedom is predicated on the oppression of other people, or they believe that a threat to their power is predicated on someone else being able to live up and enjoy the freedoms that's in our founding documents.
Well, my thing is, we had this discussion last year, and you used the metaphor of a ball field, and I said that some of us don't even get a chance to get on the field.
Yeah.
This is our opportunity to get on the field. I've been on the outside of the fence trying to figure out a way, how can I get on the field to play ball?
Yeah.
We just want to play ball. That's it. That's all we want to do is play ball. But there have been things that have been set up to keep us off the field. We just want to be on, we just want the opportunity.
Okay, that's fair. Let me ask Mr. Penny, you've been here, year and a half?
Yeah.
Year and a half?
About 15 months.
In your time, in our purchasing, processes, are we in any way preventing any group from putting a bid in?
I don't think we are. However, we do have to be more intentional.
I don't disagree.
And that is why through all of these discussions, what we've said that we would do to ensure that people know that our organization wants to encourage, wants to be inclusive, is we will do like vendor fairs so that people know what types of services we are trying to what we would purchase. And then ensuring that people are registered on our vendors list. And then as we haven't issued any major contracts. We've had some HVAC work like at the police department. But as you move forward with some of the construction projects that you want to do, in particular, as we're looking at the Louetta Moore Park improvement, the Grady Street, those are opportunities to put to work the goal so that those prime contractors, as they come forward, they know that this council is saying, we want you to try to ensure that you're inclusive in the contractors that you use, so that they will reach out and bring other people to the table for an opportunity. I haven't seen anything that would cause me alarm, but we can always do better. I think we can always do better.
And Mayor, you're right. Historically, there was you go back 10 years ago in particular, there was a good old boy network here. And there was
No, we can go back 6 or 7 months ago when we didn't even have any representation up here by a female at all. And see, and this is what we're talking about.
That's not the policy of the city. That's voting. That's different, Mr.
Well, no. This is indicative of what we're saying. Statesboro has been around for decades. And for us not to even have had one woman to serve as a council member, that was indicative of the thought process that was in decision-making positions. And so even in the short time that I've been here, I've seen interactions where the city was conducting business in a way that was not inclusive to everyone. And so now we got to be extremely purposeful about going out and making sure we are engaging everyone. And so to ask the false question as to whether or not we are preventing someone to apply, that's a false question. Because you can apply to anything, but if you do not have the knowledge to do so, then you don't know where to apply. That's just like if you're looking for a job or a grant or a house. If you don't know where to look for those particular things, then it's a false narrative to be able to say, well, they could have done that anywhere. No, we could not, because that information is not presented. And so that's what we have to do as a city. And just be in mind that this is what the state and federal government is already doing. And so for this to even be a conversation, that's what's alarming to me. And that's what's alarming about this whole entire process, is that we are looking to come in line with what state and federal government is already doing. And so, to raise up these, and it's always the same false narratives that someone is going to be discriminated against. And the truth of the matter is, we should be concerned about the people that have been historically discriminated against and say that, you know what, America today, the city of Statesboro today is a better city. We are a better nation. That's what this is about. We're better than this. And that's what upsets me.
I thought we went over this the last time. I really do, and I'm all about progressively moving so we can get on to bigger things or better things. We need to get this passed. So I'm just ready to to move forward with this. And let me make this clear as well. The skills and the qualification that it takes, that's something that's gonna be listed. If you don't meet the qualifications, we're not gonna hire you. We're not gonna hire you to do a job if you don't meet the qualifications. You have to meet the qualifications to even get the job.
Of course.
That needs to be clear. So we're not gonna hire someone who we feel like they're not capable of doing the job.
Yeah, and we just gotta talk about, let's just air it all
And
out.
then
Let's put it all out.
on top of that, no contractor that has been doing work for 30+ years should feel comfortable that they're gonna get a contract.
Yeah.
You need to know that there is competition out there for this job.
Yeah.
It brings up the quality of your work. When the quality of your work improves, then you have all of the best people now competing. But when you don't have anybody competing against you, you're lazy and you're gonna do a lazy job.
Yeah.
And we need competition.
Exactly.
That's just
And
what it is.
let's talk about what diversity actually, because the city as an organization, every department head, there was no diversity in department heads. There was, we had nobody in management that created diversity. There was no diversity in the city council. And so this as an organization was operating by excluding so many different people. And a job opening would come up, somebody would just put that person in the job and not even advertise it. Just put it, we're gonna put this person in this job. And that's what this city, this organization, and this wasn't 8 years ago, this was during your time here. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And so, because it's been, and I'm gonna tell you like this right here. We have to change our attitude as an organization. If we're claiming that we are an inclusive city, then this organization right here has to be inclusive in every measure that it takes. When you got every department head that's coming with ideas, your electorate body, this was the worst example of inclusion that we could have possibly had. And it resulted in the work. Because as soon as we began to diversify, our HR began to perform better. Our city is performing better because nobody is comfortable because it is now competition. Look at the work that we're doing. We're paving more roads. We're building more sidewalks. We're working to renovate parks. As soon as more diverse ideas came about, the city began to run better. And that's because all of the ideas were not coming from the same bucket. Now, you can be a good person, but what we need is for you to do a good job in your capacity. And that's what we're running into. I don't want no business owner thinking that just because of who they know, or they've been getting a job a long time with the city of Statesboro, that they are entitled to it. And so, and if we're going to support small businesses, like we say we are, then we got to work to make sure we support all small businesses and bring people to the table that have historically been left out.
Now, Mayor, if I may, before you went on your diatribe there, I was about to talk about 8 years ago. There was a good old boy network and contracts were being given no bid status. That was changed in our ordinance while I was a councilman because of that exact reason. We were giving people contracts, and huge contracts, road contracts, engineering contracts, design contracts, with no bidding process whatsoever. That was changed in 2013, so somewhere around there. That was changed to force us to put all these things out to bid and ensure exactly what you're talking about, Ms. Chambers, is that we had competition because, and John will tell you, we had contractors that were charging more and doing less because they could, because they had an inside track. Now as far as Councilwoman Chambers and Mac and Bart, since I've been in Statesboro 2007, there's only been 2 other women that ran for office. One was Mayor Moore, who won in her office, first woman mayor, and then ran against John in 2009, Lottie Johnson. No other women have stepped up no one prevented them. They had every ability to stand up and register and run for office, but they didn't. No woman chose to run for office, and so and I'm glad they stepped up. We have some diversity. We're hearing things differently. We're having better conversations. I like this situation, but the fact you cannot say that you can't blame council when folks didn't step up to run or even put their names out there. I mean, no woman is running District 1.
Councilman, what you're missing, and this is,
I'm
let me
sorry?
tell you something, as a man that grew up in Statesboro and have been discriminated against, okay? You got to understand the environment. See, the environment by itself will prevent a person of color or a woman to run because of the environment. It's not like they didn't have free. I wasn't the first African American to run for mayor of the city of Statesboro. That was Reverend Logan back in the 90s. Okay? But when you are a person of color, or when you are a minority, or you are a woman, an environment can be set where it's not inviting you to be a part of that process. So those are the false arguments that get out in front of people, and people believe this, right? And so this is the problem that we have. And so this is what I want you to know. It's great you guys did what you did in 2013, but here we are in 2020, and we're still only doing 8% business with minorities. 8%. So yeah, it's great you put it into law, but the action beyond law did not bring any more people to the table. And so that's where you have to be deliberate as an organization about going out and finding these individuals so that they can now become a part of the process. That's what this is about.
And I'm all for that, Mayor. My point is creating a level playing field for everyone, inviting everyone to the table.
Is it a level playing field now? With 92% of business going to one group of people?
Now, okay, but you say that. How many minority businesses put in a bid and didn't get it?
There you go. That's that false narrative we keep talking about.
What are you talking about? Yours is a false narrative.
No, it's not a false narrative, because you have to create the environment where one feels invited. Do you go to a party that you're not invited to?
No.
Exactly.
Guys,
exactly.
So, wait, we can have this conversation all day.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to discrimination, if you haven't been discriminated against, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to anybody that's sitting here, like, it's just prime example that we've been in this conversation for an hour and 38 minutes. We are never going to understand it. And if you haven't been through it, you just don't get it. So it needs to be a level. You're saying it's not a level playing field. We can talk about baseball, basketball, whatever way. It's not. It needs
So
to
let's
be.
write a law.
That's what we've been trying to do since 9:05 when I walked in a little late, and I do apologize. But let's just get on the same page. Let's do it. Let's pass this. Why do we have to break it down into sections, talk about it? If you haven't experienced, you won't get it. If you are an African American, I'm sorry, if you just won't get it. I'm not even gonna go into it because I can go on and on. If you're with the LGBTQ, you're not gonna get it. If you just don't get it. If you haven't experienced, you're not gonna get it. And then we are at the point where we can do something good Let's do it. It's just about having a heart. It's time to stop all of the hatred. It's been going on for too long. It's have a heart. If you don't agree with somebody else is doing, mind your business. That's it. Let's just have a heart and do the right thing. And I hate to get like this, though, when we sit here and talk about these things and people just pick apart everything, and if you haven't experienced it, you do not understand. You will never understand.
No offense, Ms. Mack, but you don't know my history, so you can't tell me what I do and what I have not.
It's Councilwoman
You don't know
Mack,
my history.
and I'm not
So
saying I don't
please
know.
I don't presume to know your history. Please don't presume to know mine.
Okay, Phil.
Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about whatever situations I may have had in the past, okay? But, because that's not appropriate here. What we're talking about is writing a law.
What situations that you had in the past?
I just said I am not going to get into personal stories that I've had, okay?
Well, I didn't bring up any personal story that you had.
No, but you're over here telling me that I don't know what it's
I'm
like.
saying
I don't
in
know
general.
what it is.
In general. I didn't say
You're looking at
Phil,
me.
Paulette. I'm looking this way, I look this way, I talk to the audience. When people, you get.
All right, let's bring this,
we're-
let's bring this back to the focus of what this is. This is
Yeah, that's what I'm
section
trying to
2.
do.
Are there any comments before we ask for, a motion to approve?
So, yeah, I'd like to acknowledge the passion of the people speaking today. And I'd also like to say that I really believe that every one of us up here has the intention of representing the people who elected us and all the people of Statesboro. I don't think we're in opposition, that we're all really working together to try to make things better and fair for everybody in Statesboro. And when you have passionate people trying to do that, they don't always see it the same way. So I want to acknowledge that I hear what you're saying and I feel you, and we do come from different places. But I also want to just hear, if we could, it's really hard to just keep to the facts when there are strong feelings present, and strong feelings coming up, understandably. But I did want to hear what Phil's proposition was before we vote whether to go forward with it or not. Was there a change you had in mind, Phil, when you're bringing this up?
I only had 2 minor modifications. One was the list of MBE contractors. I feel like, yes, we should indicate who those are, but we should have a list for everyone who's a contractor with the city. Because the city has an obligation to treat everybody the same. That's our obligation. And so to provide a list of vendors, and maybe this one's the female-owned, and this one's, and let me tell you, the difference between a female-owned business and a traditional business is 1%. I mean, a husband and wife can own it 50-50. If he gives her 1%, actually, if he gives her 0.1%, now it's a female-owned business. I mean, it's like I realize you gotta draw the line somewhere, but it's arbitrary to a certain extent. And so my point is, we should be creating laws that treat everyone the same, or the process should be the same for everyone. I absolutely agree that we should reach out to these underrepresented communities and invite them to participate. We should seek out minority and female-owned businesses to create additional competition. I absolutely believe that. But then when it comes down to it, compete on a level playing field. Why should a new business, just because it's owned by a white person, have a 6% disadvantage, even if that person hasn't been from here? You see what I'm saying?
What does them not being from here have to do with it?
You keep talking about like historically and these folks that have gotten, or you mentioned it, 30 years they've been getting the same contract. So I'm talking about new people that come to town. We're trying to attract new folks, right? We're trying to attract new business. And if there's businesses out there that are looking at Statesboro and see that they have a 6% disadvantage, you know, maybe they're going to go somewhere else. And that could still, just because it's a white person or a white man, doesn't mean that they're bad people. You know?
Nobody said that. Nobody said that.
All right, then. So why shouldn't they have why shouldn't they compete in the bidding process? All the rest of this can stay. I have no problems with reaching out,
They can.
all this kind of stuff. But in the bid process, it should be the best man, woman, business wins, lowest cost, best product, period. Regardless of who you are. Because, I mean, what happens when the demographics change? Now we have to change this? I mean, what happens when they hit the 20%? Do we take the 6% off? Our obligation as elected officials is to create an
Now, you
environment.
realize this is what the state of Georgia does.
What's that?
They have a set aside
The
specific.
percentage, that's
Yeah.
right. I don't want to change the
And so,
percentage. Hold on.
and do you realize
Hold
that
on.
the state of Georgia does have a process that gives points to minority-owned businesses? You do realize that, right?
Yes, there's a
You
point.
do realize that the federal government does the exact same thing. And you do
Yes, they
realize
do.
the only thing that we are saying is that we want to get in line with what our state and federal government is doing.
Yes, that would be in section 52. Is that what you're talking about?
Phil, I don't understand quite still what it is you want to change.
I want to take out section 57.
Take out the whole thing.
Okay, is there a motion to, who else seconds? Taking out
Everything
section
else is,
57?
everything else is fine.
Section 57, okay, so make your motion to pass this with the removal of section 57.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? All right, seeing that there is no second, is there a motion to approve the second section of the equity package?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to section 3. Kane.
Mayor, Council, Article 3 of Chapter 80 is the equity provision. In 8059 sets out the legislative intent, which is to provide this, inclusive atmosphere in the city of Statesboro. 8060 involves the prioritization of CDBG grants for historically disadvantaged communities. That's more a statement since CDBG is already targeted towards those populations, but it is an affirmative statement of that. Section 8061 requires that all city employees receive annual EDI of equity, diversity, and inclusion training provided by the city. And 8063 involves a campaign for equity, and that will be essentially a way of monitoring what the level of inclusion, annual dialogues on race, equity, inclusion, and the One Borough Commission will track these outcomes over time and report policies on the city's progress toward achieving these equity goals by the end of the calendar year. And that's the extent of the equity provision. And we'll go into, in item 7, there's a little more on that equity provision. Some of that got moved over to the One Borough Commission. But that's how it stands in the codification of Chapter 80, that Article 3 equity provision. It's legislative intent, the statement regarding CDBG, the equity training, and the campaign for equity.
Okay. Any discussion by council?
Do we need a public hearing?
Any discussion by council?
You don't want to hear from
All right, anybody here to speak for or against?
I'll speak for. On this matter and not the previous one, I'm speaking on behalf of Habitat for Humanity. We support this provision because one of our advocacy goals is to create communities of opportunity for low-income people, for all people, so that the areas where you have low-income housing, those people have the same access to all the necessities and amenities of life. What we understand this provision to be, and I think I do, but I'm no lawyer. But if I understand it correctly, what this will do is help the low-income neighborhoods, the traditionally underserved neighborhoods, to catch up with the rest of the city. And so therefore, we wholeheartedly support this provision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak for?
No, speak against.
Go ahead.
Well, I have primarily questions for you. Again, I'm concerned with you beginning to set up a first-class, second-class citizenship structure here, especially for employees. Your last 3 pages there, what you're talking about requires equity, diversity, and inclusion. Those words have a denotative sense, their meaning, which is good, and they have a lot of connotations. What will be the content of the instruction? Who will administer it? Will it include acknowledgement of the integrity of those who conscientiously object to perhaps some of the content of it? Again, I'm going back to the notion of conscience. Will those who conscientiously disagree lose their jobs or hopes of promotion? Or will they have their freedom of speech especially limited, perhaps out of fear? These are questions about what the instruction involves that are very important. My concern, and I know that I'm not understood, and I love y'all, but I perceive that there's not a lot of understanding here, but historically, my concern is, 120 years ago, so-called progressives used their legal power to skirt the intent of the 14th Amendment, which one lady read here, to the destruction and disadvantage of African Americans with Jim Crow segregation. To a lesser extent, I think your ordinance, and particularly here, Section 3, is pushing those who believe in biblical views of marriage and sexuality to the back of the bus. That people will fear for their jobs, the notion of equity, tolerance, and so on have political connotations. For example, I would ask you, is there equity in the NBA? You know what I would say? Absolutely. 85% are African American, they're great ball players. They beat out little guys like me all the time. The point is that equity is a slippery definition. Tolerance is a slippery one that can go both ways. Again, I'm concerned that you're setting up a structure here where those who happen to disagree with left-leaning, I'll call them that, notions of tolerance are indeed fearful for their jobs and relegated to a lack of freedom of speech and second-class citizenship. Thank you. I'm still smiling behind this.
Me too.
Aren't we on CDBG?
Okay, anybody else here to speak for or against? All right, seeing that it is none, is there a motion to approve Section 3?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, those opposed? All right. All right, so we're bringing, is there a motion to close line item 6?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, is there a motion to approve line item 6 with,
We've already voted on all 3 sections, Mayor.
yeah, all 3 sections, but we gotta do it as a whole.
No, we don't.
Okay. Like I said, is there a motion to approve line item 6?
So moved.
Is there a
Mayor,
second?
listen, I'm
Is
sorry,
there a second?
we voted on these
Is there a
already,
second?
and I want to make a point of order, which is I'm allowed to
Yeah.
do.
Go ahead.
We have
Make
voted
it-
on these 3, we have passed each section already.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I did that is because I had objections to a certain section, not the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I asked to divide it out, and then we voted on it. We have approved motion 1, 5-0. We approved the second section, 4-1, and we approved the final section, 5-0. They're already passed. We don't need to do it again.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve line item 6?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we'll move
I
on to,
abstained from that vote.
okay, and we'll move down to agenda item 6.
Mr.
I mean,
Mayor,
agenda item 7.
And
I'm sorry, before.
I didn't hear from Sherry or John either.
Yeah, I'm not clear. I thought that the first section, that we can't move it forward because we're making substantive changes.
No, I asked them to research. I didn't change anything.
Yeah. that was a-
So we're just going forward like it is.
Correct? Yes, which
Okay, so
we
now-
approved already.
So the first and third are going forward unanimously. The second one is going forward with one nay vote.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, and so, and just to be clear, how many, when I asked for the vote on line item 6 and to move it forward, I know we had 2. Sherry, John, what are your votes to move it forward? Forward, 3?
We're moving it forward, but I'm
Okay.
acknowledging what Phil was saying, that there's 3 different
Yeah.
votes.
Yeah, we've already, we did those 3. Yes, we did. Okay, we'll move down to agenda item 7, which is a public.
However, we still got 2 more weeks, and we got a second reading coming up.
Yeah, we got a second reading coming up, yeah. This is just the first public reading, public hearing, yeah. All right, so, we'll move down to agenda item 7, which is the public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2020-09, ordinance amending, chapter 2, article 2, division 3, sections regarding the Commission on Diversity and Inclusion, renaming the One Borough Commission and grant scope of authority related to workforce development, currently held by the Works Commission and Violence Prevention, as well as referencing duties created under chapter 80. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, in light of the fact that we have to reappoint members to all 3 of these committees, I'd like to table this until we've determined who's going to sit on those committees, since we're combining committees. And also, really, since this work commission is a new thing, we did not discuss this in a work session. This is, if we're going to we're about to create a one borough that does training, contracting, workforce, diversity, and violence prevention. That seems to be a lot for one particular committee.
Okay, so your motion is to table it?
To table this
Okay,
until we can appoint new members.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Is there a second to table?
Second.
Okay, all those,
Do we have to wait for John to come back?
no, I'm not. All right, is there a motion, is there a motion to approve the tabling of item 7?
So moved.
Is that-
Yes.
do we-
Hold on 1 second,
Yeah, go
just for
ahead.
clarity. So we're tabling just to get more information about
Yes,
why we're tabling?
Yes, melding the workforce commission in with the one borough was not discussed in the work session last time, and that's a significant change. And then we just got a letter from our city clerk that said that all these appointments are up for renewal. And so if we're going to eliminate one of these, we need to figure out who's going to sit on the committee, and I think that should be discussed in a work session.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I agree.
Agree? All right, so is there a motion to approve, the table?
So moved, yes.
Yeah, okay, second?
So moved.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good deal. All right, so we move down to agenda item 8.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm not trying to come on. But for me,
Go ahead.
it's instruction. So is that to mean that we're gonna discuss this, is this an item that I'm gonna add to my work session agenda for?
Yeah,
For the next time?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we move down to agenda item 8, public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2020-10, ordinance amending section, chapter 28, section 9 to require public hearings before renaming of existing roads by the council. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, so Kane, if you will.
Mayor and council, this is a revision to section 58.9 regarding the naming of and renaming of public roads within the city of Statesboro. As it currently stands, if mayor and council take action on renaming a road, no public hearing is necessary at all. And in the event that the renaming is initiated by a citizen petition, a public hearing may be held before the road is renamed. So in section 9 of this section, it sets out very specifically that a public hearing shall be required prior to the renaming of any existing road subject to this section. Notice shall be sent via first-class mail to all addresses on the existing road and not less than 30 days prior to the public hearing, notifying addressees of the time, date, and location of the hearing. Said public hearing shall also be properly noticed according to provisions of the Georgia Open Meetings Act and shall be held not less than 2 weeks prior to final consideration of the change of existing road name by mayor and council. Essentially, what this would do is it would delay any sort of renaming in a way that there would be the 30 days that would be required for, to give notice to addressees on the subject road, and also that there would be a public hearing held not less than, there would be a public hearing held, and then at the next meeting, not before the next meeting, a subsequent meeting of mayor and council, where final consideration for the road renaming is done. This just requires public hearing, and then you gotta have 30 days prior to the public hearing notice made, and then the final consideration on the renaming would be at a subsequent meeting from the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Ken.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there anyone here to speak for? Anyone here to speak against? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there any discussion by council? Oh, my bad. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion by council?
I'll actually go ahead and make a motion to approve this, Mayor. I would like to see the 30 change to 45 and 2 weeks change to 30 days. That's my motion.
We're gonna say that again?
Yeah.
Okay, notice shall be sent via first class mail to all addresses on the existing road not less than 45 days prior, and open meetings act shall not be less than 30 days prior to the final consideration.
Yeah,
I'm not for it's more time for
45 days
everyone to know.
Yeah, it just gives more information. When 911 did the road numbering on Northside Drive, it took 18 months. So I don't think 45 days is too much of a burden on us, especially when, when folks are affected. And it allows them to plenty of time to give their feedback, so. And considering this doesn't need a first and second reading to pass, it just needs to when it passes, right? It doesn't need 2 readings.
That's correct. It would be
Yeah.
under transparency
So
ordinance.
that
It would
just
just be a
gives
single motion.
This gives you a 30-day public notice that the road is gonna change. So that's my motion.
Okay. Is it a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So let me be clear on that. We've got a 45-day notice. Is that what you?
Correct.
45 days.
45-day notice, and then it'll be held not less than 30 days. It should be held not less than 30 days prior to,
Correct.
to the actual action. Okay?
All right, so we'll move down to agenda item 9. Public hearing and first reading ordinance 2020-11, ordinance amending chapter 6, section 17D to allow the city manager or designate to review and approve applications for open container exemptions. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Kane?
Mayor and council, this is about the procedure for approving exemptions to open container. So that, and this doesn't just apply to alcohol licensees, this would apply to any semi-public parking lot, those sorts of areas in the town. That those applications for the exemption, open containers outside of cars are governed solely by local option. State says you can't have it in a car, outside a car is solely the jurisdiction of the local government. As it stands now, these applications for open container exemptions have been put on council agenda for consideration by mayor and council at an open meeting. What this would do would allow for approval of these open container exemptions to be considered by a city manager or his/her designee. And upon refusal of the exemption, then the applicant would have an appellate right to have the application heard before mayor and council. What we found with the open container exemptions is we have the same businesses doing them over and over. We do staff evaluation of them. Staff evaluation would continue under this ordinance. The only difference is the initial decision would be made by city manager or designee, and then council would have a right to approve in the event that it was denied at that level. Nothing else changes as to the operation of the law or to what is legal as far as those open containers outside of the walls of businesses or homes.
Okay. Thank you, Kane. Is there anyone here to speak for the request? Anyone here to speak against? Seeing that there is none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, so open it up for council discussion.
I would like to see it still coming to city council, every request.
Okay. All right, any further discussion?
Why?
Because, that's why I was elected. And that's what my constituents want me to do.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right, so with that being said, is there any further council discussion?
Yeah, so to clarify, what's proposed under this ordinance is that if somebody wanted to do, and it met all the requirements that we always said yes, whatever, if they met the requirements and came to this, it was evaluated by the staff, and the staff said yes, it just means they don't have to wait for the next meeting.
Yeah.
It means it's not on our agenda. People still get to do what they've applied to do. Under this ordinance, the only change would be if they go through that process and don't get a yes, then they come to city council. Am I understanding it correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's still a problem for you, John?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just clarify, thank you.
And Kane, if I may, section D, subsection 2, the 25 days, I guess, and with the 5-day receipt, that should, in almost all circumstances, allow for there to be one council meeting between the theoretical denial of the application and the actual event.
And that's correct, and that's why it's written that way. It's
That's
so
what I was
that, it's so that that option is preserved in the event of denial at the city manager level.
All right, thank you.
So,
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we'll move on down to agenda item 10. This has been the longest, short agenda. We'll move down to agenda item 10, consideration of motion to approve 4805 supplemental contract and first amendment to amend the gas supply contract between the city of Statesboro and the Municipal Gas Authority of Georgia. Mr. Penny.
Defer to the city.
Mayor and Council, Mr. Hotchkiss would typically present this contract to y'all. However, he's not present today. What this is it's basically an extension of an agreement with the State Municipal Gas Authority. We are a member of the State Municipal Gas Authority. Our current contract with, this number's gonna blow your mind, but our current contract runs through 2055 with the Municipal Gas Authority, because essentially we are able to contract with ourselves for up to 50 years in that way. So, what this does is it gives a little more certainty to the gas authority, allowing them to take out up to $1 million in, I'm sorry, not $1 million, up to $1 billion in bonds to work on infrastructure and supply arrangements. This does not affect any city obligations. Essentially, this is to provide more certainty as to the longevity of municipal gas authority, contractual obligations. And this just makes it easier for them to get those grants, or not get those grants, to get those revenue bonds in, so that they can do the projects, and the projects are set out in the definitions, which is going to be section 102. They're set out in subsection 13, and you can see on there that it means the development of a portfolio of project gas supplies through acquisition, construction, plant works, the whole infrastructure of the Municipal Gas Authority, which I do want to reiterate again, we are a charter member of, an equity member of. So what this does would just extend our relationship with the gas authority through 2060, enabling them to get those bonds in order to make those improvements to the state gas system. This is a sole source provision sort of situation. This is through pipelines. And they have to, and obviously with pipelines, with that sort of provision of this resource, there is tremendous capital investment required, and this just gives them more certainty moving forward with their bond issuance.
Okay. Thank you.
And as stated in that, and also one more thing, as stated in the agenda item, on the memo on there, you know, our, as being a member of this, we typically see portfolio returns of $180,000 as a benefit of our membership in the Municipal Gas Authority. So it makes sense on our side.
Thank you, Kenny. Any discussion by council? Seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let us show that agenda item 10 is passed. Agenda item 11, consideration of a motion to award a contract to Resource Plus Land Consultants to provide environmental consulting services for the 2019 Community Development Block Grant project. Funding is provided by Community Development Block Grant and 2013 SPLOST.
Mayor, members of the council, we recommend this contract to you with Resource Plus Land Consultants. And what we have is we have some wetlands in the Little Lots Creek area along Donnie Simmons Way, and they will help us develop the plan. We're currently working with this group, and therefore we need your approval to issue this contract. It's in the amount of about $25,000 for them to do that work.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Any conversation by council? Seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have other business by city council. I had a note that Councilman Riggs, that statement.
Yes, sir, I would, in light of the, more unbelievable violence that is occurring in our city, we've had, 2 shootings. That's attempted murder to me, 1 stabbing, that's attempted murder. And then we had a murder over the weekend. I would like the chief to, stand before us on the next meeting, and I have quite a few questions for him.
Okay.
And I hope everybody else would have questions.
Would, if I may, Councilman Riggs, would it be appropriate maybe if any of us up here have questions for him, that we go ahead and submit those questions to him beforehand so he can prepare? Because a lot of this is downloading data.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
But I'm gonna have more questions, they will pop up.
Oh, sure. But I just, considering, much of what police work is data driven and things like that, it would benefit us if the chief kind of had an idea of what you were looking for. And I'm with you, man. There was a shooting killing right across from the brewery. There was one down by the post office. There's been 4 or 5 shootings, 3 killings just within a mile of City Hall. It's not good. Yeah. So anyway, if you have any questions, I'd recommend submitting them to the chief beforehand so you can have a little bit better idea what he's talking
I plan on doing it.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you, John. Any other discussion by city council?
Mr. Mayor, clarification, please. I'm still figuring out the process. On these ordinances, we've had our first reading. I thought there was, on the second reading, there was another public hearing, but then it was suggested that usually traditionally, that's only been at the first reading. So I just want to clarify, are we saying we're gonna have a public hearing again in 2 weeks? When these come up again for second reading, is that right?
That's second reading, yeah.
And there will be a public hearing, that portion too?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, so we move down to city manager comments.
Well, I had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where are we with the CARES funding?
We're still waiting. Yeah, we're waiting on that.
Yeah, we're still waiting, and we had hoped that we would have heard something. We had an update from Larry Hanson last week from GMA, and they had hoped that we would know something by the end of last week, and we have heard.
And here we are in this week.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can, speed this up a little bit, right? No way possible.
We are at the will of the
Gotcha.
governor and his staff.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, the governor, or is this, has he gotten CARES money at the state level? I thought they haven't even passed the money down to the states yet.
Well, the state of Georgia received, I think, $4 billion.
Right.
And the first part of money that we got came from those CARES Act funds.
Right.
The state set aside $1.2 billion to be shared with cities and counties. Every city and county didn't necessarily use their money.
Right.
But we've gone through that first round. We were able to, and the requirement was that you be able to use all that money that first time around. We were able to lock it in, but now everyone is simply sitting, waiting to go for the state to tell us what the next move is. Now, time is ticking because these funds have to be expended by the end of December. And so we have in the neighborhood of about 70 or 80 days to be able to expend those funds. And so we're waiting on them. We got an agreement, but our agreement was for the first 30%. We're waiting on the next 70%, and that's why we haven't moved any further.
You're gonna make me check my email right now to see if they, see if they said anything. Well, thank you, Mr. Penny. For city manager comments, do we have anything?
Yeah, Mayor, I had a couple of items right quick. Just wanted to announce to the council, and we'll be sending out some more information to you. Community cleanup. We had to cancel the spring cleanup, but we have a community cleanup for October 24th, 2020, from 9 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. More details to follow, and we'll be getting some press information out on that.
Okay.
We also have on Saturday morning, the renaming of Lester Road to Coach Lee Hill Boulevard. That is at 10 o'clock a.m. We'll be sending a press release out on that as well. That is rain or shine. If it rains, the high school will provide us a location inside the high school so that we can proceed with the program.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Coach wouldn't have had it any other way. I know.
Huh?
Coach wouldn't have had it any other way, yeah.
And I do want to just mention to, and I don't want to say this statement publicly, because we were talking about the rapid testing, and we had worked with Dr. John Gerges, and y'all had agreed that we would be able to purchase about 500 test kits. Yesterday, I did send Dr. Gerges a note that said that we would not move forward with the rapid testing through him because we have an agreement with East Georgia Health Center for rapid testing. They now have equipment in Statesboro for rapid testing. And we've been able to use their services. Dr. Gerges still he's received his machine, but he has not received his test kits. And so therefore, didn't want to over-commit the city to having to purchase 500 test kits when we already have the service available to us at East Georgia Health Center. Because I wanted to share that with you. But I want to also publicly thank Dr. Gerges for his commitment and his willingness to work with the city of Statesboro to provide that service to our employees. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. All right, we move down to public comments. On the agenda, we have Ms. Annie. Ms. Annie.
Good morning.
My name is Andy Bellinger. For 21 years, I have tried to get some cords enforced on Johnson Street. It may be one, or maybe two, so Johnson's here when I started asking that it be done, because it looked terrible in that neighborhood, and I know it has not looked that way all my life. I've been in Statesboro for over 50 years. Been in Bullock County 80. And the first person that get attacked about the properties and the code enforcers down there is me. If you don't think that's discrimination, and I'm the one been begging and pleading and going to meetings, trying to get help, because the place looked terrible. If you're gonna tear the place down, but don't attack me. Now, like last month, my brother called me, told me we got a letter from the city saying they give us 7 days to clean the property up. We goes down and we work all day long cleaning it up. He did, charge him the back. The next morning, it was raining a little, so my brother didn't go down there, I went down there. Just as soon as I got down there, your court enforcer came. He said, "You own this property down here?" I said, "Well, sort of." He said, "Well, you got 7 days to clean it up. The man did a pretty good job back there, but I tell you what you better do, you better clean that off the side of that house." I said, "Wait a minute, who do you think you're talking to?" I said, "I'm 80 years old." I said, "And guess what? I seen him come and I seen him go." He said, "Well, I'll have you out from down here before you get." I said, "Okay, we'll see about that one. We'll see about that." And you know, like I said, I've been down there for 20 years trying to clean that place up. I don't live down there, but my uncle lived down there, and he worked with the city council when he lived down there, trying to keep that property up in the black neighborhood. There's plenty of businesses that could be in that black neighborhood if the code had been enforced when I asked them to enforce it 20 years ago. Because I know I went to my uncle's house 2 or 3 times a week, and I know what he did to try to keep that neighborhood up. And now it's a shame before the Lord and everybody else, when you're all off the cords down there, you can't even drive a car between 2 businesses. You get around on the back of a fire gets started down there. Watch what I tell you. All that stuff down Johnson Street is gonna get dry. And guess what? You're gonna have a California fire down there. Because there ain't nothing to stop that fire when it starts down there. You go from all the way across, just go from one to the other one, all that. But you gonna come and attack, your code enforcer gonna come in, first person he gonna attack is me. But see, what he didn't realize, I had turned the property over to my brother. But when my brother was down there, he didn't come down there and say anything. He was gonna come down there the day I'm down there to attack me, and then gonna sniggle and giggle with the guy with the car wash. And he has, what he said has caused me trouble on my other jobs, because that's what I do for a living, is clean. And I ain't ashamed to tell nobody, but I have been all the way to the top, but I chose the bottom. You know why I chose the bottom? Because if I fall, I won't have very far to fall. And then you don't know whether I'm up or whether I'm down, because I'm down here all the time. Now, I have asked and asked, but I don't appreciate being attacked by your code enforcer about no property when the whole Johnson Street needs doing something done to it. But I'm the one that has been begging and pleading, and I get, that's what thanks I get. This didn't happen back 10 years ago. This happened today. Why change from 10 years ago to today on that property down there? So the code enforcer caused me a lot of problems down there with what he come down there and done, said in front of people. But that's all right, God will prevail.
Ms. Annie,
Ma'am?
I have a question for you. What's your address of the property?
On Johnson.
On Johnson Street, what's your address?
209 and 311.
I'm not gonna come visit you, I just wanted to see. What is it, I'm sorry?
209 and 211.
209 and 211. And do you know the code enforcer's name?
No, I don't.
Well, I do wanna apologize to you for being mistreated. That's not what we stand for. So I do apologize that that happened to you, and Mr. Penny, if you can look into it and see what's going on, because that's not what we stand for. So I do apologize to you.
And I have a question too, because I talked with you, Ms. Bellinger, maybe about 2 Saturdays ago, came to your house and talked to you. So you are in agreement with code enforcing on Johnson Street because you want the community to come up to the level that it was before. Is that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Mayor, yeah, there is one.
Okay.
William Headley.
No, you can have to leave. You can have to leave.
Oh, are you William?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hi there. My name is William Headley. I'm currently homeless, but you wouldn't know that from looking at me. So I just wanted to read a scripture real quick and then kind of dive into what I think it means. This is Isaiah chapter 3, verse 1 through 5. For behold, the Lord God of hosts is taking away from Jerusalem and from Judah support and supply, all support of bread, all support of water, the mighty man and the soldier, the judge and the prophet, the diviner and the elder, the captain of 50, the man of rank, the counselor and the skillful magician, and the expert in charms. I will make boys their princes, and infants shall rule over them. The people will oppress one another, everyone his fellow, everyone his neighbor. And the youth shall be insolent to the elder, and the despised to the honorable. So we don't have magicians, we don't have prophets, we don't have things like that, but we have, that's the mean positions in community. There's tax collectors, there's different positions around. That was just something they had. It's a generality. I'm trying to interpret this in today's context. In verse 4 it says, and I will make boys their princes, and infants shall rule over them. If you watched the presidential debate recently, that sounds pretty familiar. From what I just heard, and the people will oppress one another, everyone his fellow, everyone his neighbor. That also sounds pretty familiar. This passage of Scripture is addressed to Judah and Jerusalem, which is God's chosen people at the time. If you look at America's history, we, at one time, were chosen by God. If you want one instance where it all could have fallen apart, look at Valley Forge. There was a winter, there was terrible morale, there was a plague. If the army had disbanded right there, America would have not existed. The fact that we made it through that is a sign. I would say that this is we are God's people. We have found His favor, and in reading this, I would also flip to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 18 and 19. Just have California in the back of your mind as I read this. For wickedness burns like fire. It consumes briars and thorns. It kindles the thickets of the forests, and they roll upward in a column of smoke. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts, the land is scorched, and the people are like fuel for the fire. No one spares another. So to bring it out of this is where I'm coming from. I'm now going to step into circumstance, things that we have all seen. Councilman and everyone present, if you would please raise your hand if you have been involved in a business that you have seen a shortage of some kind. Like my uncle runs an HVAC business, and he has a hard time getting a hold of units. The factories are running at a low capacity because there was that meat packing plant that was specifically pigs. I can't remember where, but they had an outbreak of COVID, and they dropped back on production. I'd like you to think back to March when there was no toilet paper. Not only was there no toilet paper, but in the Walmart in my small town of Jessup, which is where I'm from, the meat section was completely empty. I mean, this is a cooler section that runs the length of the store. It's about 100 feet long. The only thing in it was expensive seafood. No pork, no chicken, no beef. So all of that considered, we also have an enormous amount of political, social, economic unrest. The protests following George Floyd's death, those were global. We have the most divisive presidential race in America's history, and we also have a shaky economic.
Yeah, that's the 3 minutes.
Well, the point that I'm trying to make is I personally am going to invest my net worth in buying food because I feel that the time is coming where it is going to get much worse. COVID-19 has shaken the world, and it's not even, I had COVID-19 in September 8th. On September 8th, I tested positive. I've had colds worse than that. I understand that that's not the rule, that's the exception. I am a young man. But it is not the virus that is the problem, it is the fear that's kicked up as a result. We saw that coming out in March, we saw that in Portland, we saw that in California, protests. People are angry about a lot of things. America is hurt. And it takes one spark to set it off. And if you're looking for a spark, we have November 3rd. I mean, that's pretty clear. So I would ask the council to consider making considerable investments in food to feed the population in the event that there is, this does happen.
Thank you. Okay, so that was, is there anyone else?
No, Mayor.
That's it? Okay. All right, and so we're down to agenda item 15, which is consideration of a motion to enter into executive session to discuss real estate and potential litigation in accordance with OCGA 50-14-3B. Is there, I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session.
We do need to.
Yeah, we need it.
Before that, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I was slow jumping in to other comments. I've got a question for Mr. Penny about the testing. East Georgia now has available locally the rapid testing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but then what we're still offering over at Loretta Moore is not rapid testing. That's a conventional nasal swab,
Right,
3 to 5 days.
that's the PCR, in which they are doing today and Thursday. And I'm sorry I got this information after the FYI packet went out. Through last week, they had tested 267 people. They had about 19 positive cases that had come through there. And they were still waiting on about 27. And the numbers are declining on number of people that are being tested. The last two weeks, 2 days, they were like 25 people being tested a day. And I shared this with the mayor, even the county at the health department, we've seen in the last week, those numbers have been declining as well for the number of people that are being tested as well.
So what's the current thinking about how long we'll continue to offer the testing at this, and I'm sure nobody knows why it's dropping off so
Well, I
much.
have a 1 o'clock call today. And we hope it's a good sign for Statesboro, but we never know because some folks said there's gonna be a second surge. But right now, we are seeing a decline. You're seeing a decline in the number of new cases that I send out to you on a daily basis. So East Georgia wants to see if right now, the health department may be able to handle it, but they're committed through the rest of this week to do the testing at Loretta Moore.
So we're looking at shutting it down after that and then opening it up again if there's a need?
I'm not saying they're looking at it, but if the numbers continue to decline, they wouldn't want to have their resources just sitting there if no one's coming through to be tested.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
And Mr. Benny, to follow up, when you say East Georgia, you're not talking about the hospital, you're talking
No,
about?
I'm talking about East Georgia Health Center.
Okay.
That's the FQHC in our community.
They're out of Swainsboro?
No, they have a site here.
They have a site here, but.
Yeah, they're in about 9 different counties.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right, is there a
Mr.
motion?
Mayor, I'm sorry, got 3 points. The second one is following up on what people were asking about the CARES funding, and I hear that we're waiting on the governor for that. But I'm concerned, just like we're concerned about increased crime in Statesboro, I'm concerned how our folks are doing with the waiting so long and no more relief and such high unemployment. I'm wondering if we might could ask some of the local service providers to address us next time, to just hear about the numbers of people looking for service. If we could hear from some of the local service providers who deal with human needs. Maybe we could invite somebody to come and tell us what's happening and what we might do on other payers.
I think we could reach out to Carrie and help her help us organize that. I can tell you from what I'm hearing on the ground is that people are hurting. And this is nothing that's unique to Statesboro, this is across the nation. The rise that we're seeing in crime locally, that's not unique to Statesboro, that's across the nation. I think that, I think we thought about the economic piece. We thought about a whole, but the piece that we're really dealing with is mental health. This has been a very stressful time period, and all of those things are weighing in. I literally yesterday, suffice to say that my spirit has been heavy, because in the past 4 days, I think I've had 6 people that I know pass away. But with that being said, on yesterday, I literally got to work and a man had crawled a 400-foot tower And when I saw that, that was the personification of the amount of weight that we're seeing this pandemic have on the mental health of people around our nation. So I think that would be very good of us to get a report from some of the service providers to let us know, how they're being affected. But I can tell you, from what I've seen, and I don't know about anybody else, but from what I'm hearing, this is a hurting time. And we've got to stick, this is a time that we've got to stick together. What Mr. Williams was saying in regards to supplies and things of that nature, everywhere you go to the grocery stores, a lot of things are out. So I don't know whether that's a service situation or what have you, but this is a very difficult time period. But we're going to get through it. We're going to be tougher for it. And hopefully on the other side of this, we're going to be more thankful for the peace that we've had for a long time.
So my final item that I wanted to mention.
No more items, not.
Sherry, can I throw one thing in on that? I talked to Kim Billings, she's the legal advocate over at Safe Haven, and she's another one, she's on the family violence task force, so she would be a good one to get a report from, but they're dealing with massive upticks in domestic violence. Surprisingly, you're even seeing more men as victims. That's like one of their biggest spikes. You're seeing a 30 to 35% increase in overdoses. You're seeing increases in suicides. You're seeing increases in child abuse, which, because a lot of the kids aren't going to school, school is like the #1 place where it gets reported. And as a result, even though you're not seeing massive spikes, they know that they're getting a lot more child abuse cases because those kids are trapped at home with their abusers. So, and domestic violence the same way. So these folks are trapped at home. There's nowhere to go. Normally school is an outlet, work is an outlet, and the shutdown and keeping people from interacting has had a deleterious effect on a wide swath of our community.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it in the violence.
Yeah.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, a happier note, my final thing is about squashing the spread here in Statesboro. Most of you are familiar and follow the page, appreciate that. Find it on Facebook if you haven't already. But we're continuing to look at ways to safely move forward the best we can and live lives as normal as possible. And of course, Halloween and trick or treat is coming up. So the things that I'm aware of right now, there's 3 different things planned for trick or treat. The rec department is doing a drive-through that morning out at Mill Creek. The Y is having something from 3 to 4 drive-through type event. And then the sheriff's office is going in with EMA and going to do something out at the fairgrounds from 4 to 6 on the day of Halloween. So follow the page and think in advance and plan to celebrate with your family, with your children as safely as possible. And there's some good ideas about how you can do trick or treat at home safely on the page. So just a plug for squashing the spread.
Yeah, thank you. So with that being said, anything else from council? If there is none, we'll ask for a motion to go into executive session. Is there a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.